Saul and Battery, hosted by
Mike
and Kelly. Forget what you know. Forget what you know. A song and battery.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Saul and Battery, a show where we discuss the most recent episode of Better Call Saul. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
And I'm Mike at Official Pagan on everything.
All righty. So this is episode 9, which is called Fall. And it's a bit jam-packed in terms of character development, in my opinion. Your thoughts, Mike, on that?
Completely agree. This is a very interesting episode. I'm curious to see how you're going to do your 30-second recap.
Yeah, me too. So there have been a couple drafts.
I'm gonna throw down a challenge for you right now.
Can you
do it in 15 seconds?
I'm gonna try. I'm making a last-second adjustment to my list here, so I can do that. All right, and give me a 1-second grace period if. Given the fact I've got to, my whine about I've got to set the thing up and all that good stuff. But let me get to the timer here. And okay, here we go. Jimmy has an unsettlement feeling. Linda calls Mike a rounding error. Howard chucks a partner. Kim's pushing. Howard's shushing. Hector takes F-bomb pills. Irene gets shots. Nacho gets the boot, and Howard gets sued. Jimmy cashes out, and Kim wipes out. Dang it. 19 seconds.
Still, that was really good.
But my goodness, there was a lot of stuff. Even though that recap covered it in great detail, perhaps we'll talk about it a bit more from there.
We could expound upon one or two things, I'm sure.
Yeah, an element or two. I think Howard chucks a partner. It's my favorite one of that list. I wanted to get chair yoga in there, but I just couldn't. All right, we'll just go ahead and get rolling right in because there's a lot going on this episode. So on the opening, we see the Esteem come rolling up to a place we haven't been in a while, Sandpiper, and Jimmy's coming in with some cookies and digging around a little bit to find out where things are at the settlement because he's a little bit strapped for cash and he's getting 20% of that. Meets with the primary class action representative, and she's being told to sit tight. And Jimmy does some rough math and figures out that if he can get them to settle, he's going to pocket about $1.1 million. This also has my quote of the show, where as Jimmy's talking, he's a charmer. He's talking to all the elder law folks, and one of them after he compliments one of them, she goes, "Oh, you honey dripper." So I think on occasion, Mike, I'll throw that. I'm going to call you a honey dripper because I think that'll go over well.
Aw. I appreciate that, Kelly.
You bet. You honey dripper.
Yeah, I really like this scene. I liked when he pulled up outside and he was getting the cookies. I was like, yes, we're getting into the elder law stuff. And for a second, though, time frame wise, I was a little bit confused because I wasn't sure if this was going to be like a flashback to something we hadn't seen from when he was still practicing. Once he got in and started talking, I realized what he was doing, that he was trying to get some information about his settlement because, as you said, he's strapped for cash. Now, for you personally, if you suddenly came into over $1 million, what would you do with that money, Kelly?
So I did a search recently on the most expensive drone, and it's $32,000. So I think a first step is for me to buy that. So I think that's an out the gate type of thing, and then I probably figure a way to put some of it away to keep making me money, so I can keep spending more. and I believe I would be turning in my notice. What would a young Mike Belinsky do with $1.1 million?
I'm not young anymore. I'm 35 now, Kelly.
That's right. President, that's probably going into your campaign fund, right, for commercials.
Yeah, absolutely. If I were not running for president, because obviously that's going to go towards campaigning and doing a baby kissing tour, I would probably buy an office. In the process of building a studio in the house that I'm currently in, and while it's interesting and fun and great and all that stuff, I don't want to do this again as I continue to move and things like that. So I would like to have an office that is outside of my home. So I'd buy like a small building somewhere.
And buy the street name and make it like Squat Cobblestone Way. And
that's good. I've always in my mind, at some point I'm gonna just move away from civilization and live on a mountainside somewhere. And thanks to Amazon, I feel like that's gonna be closer and closer now. Because the one thing that keeps me from living in the middle of nowhere is the convenience of living in a big city. But I think with Amazon Prime, like I'm getting pretty close to not needing the convenience of a big city. So it's gonna be sooner than later. But I've always wanted to do this in part because if I'm far enough off of the main stretch and there's like a long driveway going up, I'm going to make my own street signs and have just obscene names for these street signs. So that when I give people directions, I have to tell them to turn into these like horrifyingly offensive streets.
Yes. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing a few of those street sign mock-ups. I'm sure they'll be good.
like ones that I always like, as I tell people that, and they're like, give me an example, and I'll be like, okay, so like you're going down the main highway, and I'm like, turn right near your mom's asshole. And there'll be a street sign that says your mom's asshole or something like that. So it's not, they have to do it.
That'd be a cul-de-sac, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be a cul-de-sac?
I guess that depends on their mom.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Oh, the imagery. Well, we're gonna we come back and we've got Mike sitting in an office, and a segue. I love Jonathan Banks. The guy can emote feelings with just the slightest way his body is positioned and all those things, and it was completely clear to me when that guy in the hallway zips by on a Segway that just the disgust he had with that. And it was and he didn't do hardly anything. It was just like a little slight body movement. But I'm like, Mike doesn't like the Segway.
You're absolutely right. Like it's almost like super emotive acting through micro expressions.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the guy does a fantastic job with it. But he meets with an oddly, continually very confident, non-twitchy Lydia, who is there. This is him working things out with Gus to launder his money. And he's going to get hired in originally as a logistics consultant, which he converts to security consultant, which tracks with Breaking Bad down the road. So he's going to get there, and for the next 20 weeks, he's going to get $10,000 a week, and Gus is going to take care of all the taxes and Social Security and all that to kind of launder that money in a good way. And Lydia calls Mike a rounding error, which I think was a really bad idea. And he kind of makes a comment like, you're doing an awful lot for a drug dealer. And she goes, if that's all you think Gus Fring is, you don't know Gus Fring. So let's stop there for a second and kind of talk about the Lydia scene. Are you struck by, I'm just used to Lydia from Breaking Bad, who is like wound incredibly tight. And this Lydia seems very cool and collected. Something's going to have to happen to her to kind of get her.
Yeah. That's a
out.
really good point, and I wonder how much of that really plays into what she says to him, that you don't, if that's all you think he is, you don't really know Gus. Do you think she has some like wildly different impression of what's going on here, that like maybe he sells drugs for some greater good?
I don't know. I mean, I think that could be a scenario, or I mean, obviously her understanding of the current environment isn't completely accurate, because, and I guess maybe somehow when she kind of fully understands what's going on here, maybe that's when she freaks out. Yeah, but maybe she thinks there's a little more.
Yeah, and that's definitely more what I'm getting at. Like, maybe it's she has some vastly, like, obviously she's aware that drugs are an element of this, but does she have some vastly different understanding of what's happening here, and that's where this confidence is coming from, her being misinformed?
I think it very well could be, and my guess is we will not get enlightened on that until season 4. But it's
Yeah, probably not. I would have to imagine. I do have 2 questions for you though,
okay.
based on the scene. So the first one is, if you were in Mike's position, in the sense that you were going to get a fake job title to help you launder money, and you got to choose what your fake position would be, what would your fake position be?
Evangelist.
So that you don't have to pay taxes?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm going to get the religious bump, and I'm just going to evangelize on things.
So you would actually perform as an evangelist in some capacity
When the mood struck me. Yeah, because you don't schedule evangelizing, it comes out. So it just yeah, I think evangelist, it feels hefty. What's a Mike job title?
That's,
your choice, any choice at all.
I really don't know. I would actually probably want to be, see, and this is where it would get hard for me. My knee-jerk reaction would be to pick something super generic, like, office clerk or something like that. But then how do you justify making that much money? So that would actually be a really difficult thing for me. Because I would spend a lot of time agonizing over picking something that's super generic and doesn't draw attention, but at the same time somehow gets paid a lot of money for a generic job anybody could do. So that would be really tough for me. But my other thing I wanted to ask you, and we've kind of discussed this a little bit, I think, before, because within the Breaking Bad universe, we've been exposed to a lot of ways you can launder money, and a lot of businesses and different things you could do to kind of cover up or create a more legitimate paper trail for income you have. So at this stage, having seen Breaking Bad, having gotten this far into Better Call Saul, and allegedly whatever you may do in your own life, right now, what would Kelly Toole opt to do to launder some money? How would you go about this?
Well, I think Walt did not give Saul his due during Breaking Bad when he advanced the laser tag model. I would totally use a laser tag. That place, it had laser tag and pinball machines and air hockey, and I'm going to bet there was like crappy pizza you could get. I'd be in hog heaven. So I'd be just sitting in the back office of the laser tag place.
I like it. I like that. I would go actually fairly similar. I would open something like a Chuck E. Cheese type of place where you have kids parties and things like that, because that stuff is really expensive. So I feel like it's believable when you're laundering the money, and I also feel like you could make legitimate money off of the business at the same time. Like, that's the problem that I have with Hector's business, is like Hector's business is 100% just a front.
Yeah, blatant.
Whereas Gus, yeah, blatant front. Whereas like Gus has an operating restaurant. So like I would definitely want something that actually brings in money and is an operating business, so that you can make additional money off of it. Just like, you had said before, find a way to make that money make more money for you. I would do, something along those lines. And I definitely think like he said with the laser tag thing, but I would go more of a Chuck E. Cheese thing. I go to a lot of like little kids parties. Not because I'm invited, just, they have good drugs there. and I go to a lot of little kids parties, and that stuff is expensive. So I feel like that's something that would not only help you explain away thousands of dollars very quickly, that you could launder through that, but actually make thousands of dollars.
It's a good plan. I used to love to hit the little kids parties, mostly just take pictures and then ask the kids their names later. But for some reason, I don't know, it's been discouraged, and so I don't get to do that anymore. But it was a nice hobby.
I was going to a kid's party a couple of years ago, and I arrived with a friend early for this part. Well, actually, I was just about on time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes early, but everyone else was running late. So we looked like two adults hanging out in Chuck E. Cheese, and this caused a lot of problems. So I do have firsthand knowledge of that.
Yeah, I could see that might alert the Chuck E. Cheese security forces.
Yeah. There was people who were visibly uncomfortable by the whole thing, and we kept trying to explain to them, like, no, we're here for a kids' party. I swear, everyone else is just late. Every person for this party is late, and luckily, like, we're only there maybe like 15 minutes on our own. But in those 15 minutes, we drew so much attention to ourselves.
I could see that happening. So we return back to Hamlin McGill, where it turns out those goddamn insurance companies there, and they're going to be doubling all their premiums. And you know, they don't say it's not just because of Chuck's testimony, but clearly it's because of Chuck's testimony. And it's not good. You can tell Howard's not happy. Chuck's not having it. He's playing hardball. We're going to go after them. Howard, after you can just see, and again, all these actors are great because you can just totally see Patrick Fabian, throwing out all the signals that, like, what the hell are you doing, Chuck, and all this type of thing without saying anything again. He suggests maybe it's time for Chuck to retire, and he says maybe it's not a suggestion because I can't work with a partner I don't trust. And Chuck's not too happy to hear that.
This is where the acting in this is where, to me, the acting in this show is so good, because up until this point, like, we really are on the, like, Chuck's a dick bandwagon, but now here it's like Howard's the bad guy and we feel for Chuck. But Howard is being perfectly reasonable here, because even though we know Howard has been a dick a lot in this show himself and has definitely earned that, he's being completely reasonable here. And I remember making the analogy on a previous episode of the show, like, when I watched interviews with the people who made the Ed Wood biopic, and they said the hardest part about writing that is to make people with reasonable demands seem like the villains. And that's sort of like where Howard's at now. Like, he's cast as the bad guy in the scene, and you want to root for Chuck when Chuck's a pretty bad guy, and, like, Howard's request is not unreasonable, and he's really stood up for Howard and gone to bat and really put up with what everyone else. He really stood up for Chuck, and Howard put up with what everyone was aware was more of a psychological issue than an actual physical issue. And he put up with this for a long time and went to bat for Chuck. And, now that it's actually going to threaten his business, he's protecting the business and protecting his clients. So, like, he's not the bad guy, but he's being cast that way. And that's where the acting and the writing is so good, that the reasonable person can be the bad guy in this situation.
I think you're dead on. I mean, he's well within his rights. He's done a lot to be accommodating. And if this is now at the point where this is going to double insurance premiums for the entire firm, he's gotta look at it that way. And just looking at Chuck's performance recently on the various items, he's not the asset that he once was. And so Patrick Fabian's acting is amazing. Michael McKean, when he's like, I'm better now, and he's grabbing the lamp and he's holding it, and this combination of him trying to show that it doesn't matter, but clearly it does matter, and Howard going, and this is normal, and
it's just so good, the
it's
exchange between
amazing
them
stuff.
and the subtleties.
And awesome acting continues as we return to find Kim in the desert and with her potential new client, where there's a bit of an issue around. He's in Texas, but it looks like some of his oil is actually in New Mexico, and he's getting hit with double taxes. She's got a plan on how that can be addressed in a pretty financially favorable way for him. He calls it payoff. I think it's creatively looking at what's going on. I don't think it's too scammy at all, but Kim's really smart. And then her car he has to take off. She's on her own and her car's stuck. And so she's kind of MacGyver's a way to get the car out of there, and it nearly rams an oil rig. And so just a short little scene, a lot of tension, and Ray Seahorn just acts the crap out of the whole thing.
She's awesome, and we've talked about this a lot. She does such a great job, and I love how this scene, there's a lot of tension and it's really entertaining, and there's probably elements to it that people can relate to, and I love how it's so indicative of her and of her situation. She's clever and she's resourceful, but things are starting to get away from her and spin out of control a little bit. She's kind of barely hanging on to it.
Yeah, and we cut right out of that to a little really short scene of Jimmy at HHM, where he's trying to convince Howard, you need to close this up. And Howard calls him transparent and pathetic, offers him a handout, which was, while I can respect a lot of what Howard's done so far, this was, he's clearly got a lot of contempt for Jimmy now. And I mean, I get that, I guess, in terms of how things have played out. But a nasty little scene between the two of them. But what becomes clear is Howard isn't budging. And Jimmy has few options. Part of this, I think, is to set up the fact to say if Jimmy's going to force a settlement, he's got to be really crafty, because certain ways he might try and force it would be pathetic and transparent and would cause him to lose his payday. You have anything on the whole Howard?
Yep. This is a great scene, and what I really love about this is, you see Howard, even though he's forcing Chuck out, he really does care about Chuck and respect Chuck. And what Jimmy did to Chuck is something that, even though Howard didn't hate Jimmy the way that Chuck did, it's poisoned Jimmy for him completely now. So even though he's the one who's pushing Chuck out of the firm at this point, he still obviously, feels for him and knows or feels that what Jimmy did in this situation was completely wrong. And my favorite line of the episode came with this, where he says talking to him was like talking to Gollum.
Yep. See right through you.
So
yeah, that was a great line. That was a candidate for me as well. I love that. And then we cut over to Hector, who's busily playing with a lighter. It's very ominously lit scene. They're getting a call. I don't know why they had to wait in this strange dilapidated warehouse for a call, but they did. And basically,
I feel like Hector, and it's not overdone. Like, I could see someone complain that maybe it's a little bit overdone, but it so fits the character perfectly. It's not the writing of the show. It's the character himself. Like, the way that, like, Hector wants to present himself a certain way. Like, his front business isn't a business, it's just a front. Whereas Gus is serious about his front business being an operating business and taking care of his employees and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's still a front business, but it's a real business. Like, Hector, like, you can tell, likes to present himself a certain way as sort of like this old school, running the show kind of mob guy. And so to me, like, that, like the ominous, like, half under construction abandoned building or whatever it is that they're in, is like, that's exactly where Hector would want to have a meeting. He would have a phone brought out to this, whatever it is, so that he could have this meeting there. That to me was exactly what Hector would do.
Yeah, and he has to know that Gus will hate it. It's dirty and grungy, so he wants to do everything he can to make it uncomfortable. But Don
like
Eladio,
Gus would have had this meeting in an actual office.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and it has snacks like he did in Breaking Bad. Anytime they met, here's some
it would have been catered. It would have been an office.
Yeah, Hector doesn't do much in the catering front, I don't believe.
No, well, I mean, his restaurant doesn't do much in the cooking front.
No, not at all. Yeah, that's true. So Don Eladio's spokesperson calls and says basically everything's going to go through Gus because he likes it better. It's simpler. It's cleaner. It's safer. Hector's not very happy about that. Has another little episode. Pops some of the pills that have been at this point replaced by Nacho. And he just F-bombs everybody. He's F-bombing Eladio and Gus and Bosa. And he's not having any of it. He doesn't like the plan. Good scene.
It is a great scene, and I love too, again, talking about nuanced acting. You see Nacho's facial expressions and his eyes kind of darting back and forth as he pulls the pills out and things like that, and he's not even saying anything, and you get this sense of tension from his character because you know that he switched out the pills. It's just excellent acting.
Yeah, it really is. And then so we've had a lot of tension. We've had a lot of stuff going on. So now we're back to the scams and the craftiness. So Jimmy's got a problem, which is he's got to try and force this settlement, but he can't leak information. He can't do some other things. So we are all wondering what he is going to do, and it slowly starts to unveil itself in that he's at the mall in some god-awful mall walking outfits, but some styling shoes, some very fancy shoes. And he grabs the Irene, the lead class litigant, and convinces her kind of like, hey, I bought my girlfriend a pair of these shoes too. What's your size? And he goes out, he's bought like every size possible, because basically his objective becomes pretty clear, is to get this lady into a pair of these high-end tennis shoes. And then and she's very appreciative, and he says, don't tell anybody. And she's very appreciative, and then he starts to sow these seeds with everybody else around. Maybe she's got some money. Look at those shoes. And while doing chair yoga. So it's our second appearance of chair yoga. Chair yoga looks pretty much like a good workout to me, but you start to kind of see Jimmy's plan come together.
Yeah, I think it's a great plan. It's definitely, again, more Saul. We're getting more of that character that we love emerging. Kelly, what color tracksuit would you wear going for mall walking?
I would not wear a white one with red piping. I'll give you that right now.
No, that was the main thing that kind of bothered me about it, was like, because I got immediately where we were going with this when we saw him in the tracksuit, and I was just like, I would never wear a white tracksuit.
I don't think you can look good in a white tracksuit. I think I would go for the black or a nice dark blue. I'm going to guess, kind of given.
Maybe like a.
Go ahead.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I'm guessing you're black, would be my guess.
I was going to go like a baby blue.
Interesting choice. I think it's. Oddly enough, I think there's a large number of baby blue tracksuits available. So it is a very popular color. So
something I'm definitely going to have to look into then.
Yeah, maybe that could be your new look. Just always wear a baby blue tracksuit.
I keep trying to convince people at the office where I'm located to we should just coordinate our outfits on random days, but coordinate them to things we could never possibly accidentally do. Like not all wear black or all wear sweatpants or something like that, but like all wear matching tracksuits, things along those lines. So I'm thinking like baby blue tracksuit, a big gold rope chain.
Be good. Lederhosen maybe one day might be nice.
Lederhosen, business casual.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the blue tracksuit has got some options, or you got to keep working them, because I think that could be awesome. Oh, and then we come back to Nacho, who's breaking the news to his dad that there's going to be a bad man coming, and you better do what he says, because bad things will happen if you don't. And he's again tremendous acting. Really trying. He knows his dad's a good guy. He knows he's screwed up. But he is saying, "I know what you want to do, and what you want to do is going to be bad for you. So don't do that, and it'll all be over soon." And his dad kicks him out. Another good scene.
Yeah, it's really great, and Nacho is such a good character as they develop him more. And the actor whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, he does such an excellent job.
Michael Mando.
I feel like he's really. I'm sorry.
Michael Mando is the actor.
Michael Mando, yeah. I feel like, you know, we've talked about like the excellent caliber of acting on this show, and he more than holds his own with everyone on the show.
Yeah, I agree, and it's interesting because he was in like the first couple seasons of Orphan Black as the really dirtball boyfriend of the lead character.
Right.
And I mean, and the character doesn't have as much going on as Nacho does in terms of dimension. And it was very much kind of what he did a very good job in acting the character he was given. But man, he's just blown me away in this because he's up against all these other folks that just bring it. And he does, to your point, he holds his own. Absolutely. This cast is just so amazing.
The cast is excellent, and then when you see people who, like, prior to the show have already established their sort of pedigree with people like Bob Odenkirk and Michael McKean and all that kind of stuff. So to see somebody who, you know, we've maybe seen less of, like we saw him in Orphan Black and stuff like that, but to see him completely hold his own and to be able to add so much dimension with such subtlety to his character the way that everybody else does, I really can't say enough about the acting overall in this show, and this episode is just such a great example of that.
It truly is, because it comes again even some more, and that Howard gets a letter from Chuck. He assumes it's Chuck stringing his letter of resignation. It's not. It's Chuck saying, "I'm suing you." Howard makes a stop by there. Chuck's saying, "Yeah, give me $8 million and I'm good because I built this," and he knows that'll break HHM. And the lights are on in Chuck's house. Some of the lights are on in Chuck's house, and he's busily cooking. And to kind of make his point on how much better he is to Howard, he's using a hand mixer, electric hand mixer, to kind of work on food. So Howard's pretty ticked by the end of this and storms off. But what we do see at the end is, while Chuck continues to say he's better, he's clearly not all better, because that little blender stunt to look, and boy, you can just tell he is so committed to convincing Howard he's okay. He totally hides whatever pain he's going through there until Howard's out of sight, and then he's not doing so well anymore. So another amazing scene.
Yeah, it's just so good, so well acted. And what do you think when you saw this scene? In your mind, like, how would a Howard Chuck court battle go?
I think at the end of the day, Howard's going to have a point to say, here's how this guy's been working for the past X number of years. We've had to have files at his house when he's doing things in an unsecured fashion. We have to turn everything off. You saw how he testified there, because they don't have all the facts, whether the numbers are screwed up on the papers. So I think Howard can point to a number of things to say, this is not someone we can in confidence have kind of in charge. Now, what a court would say about how much, if they disconnect, how much is Chuck due, comes into how much is Chuck responsible for what HHM is, which I think is probably pretty substantial. So
yeah, it definitely sounds like he was instrumental in building the company. What I think is interesting with this scene, and what it could possibly implicate going forward when you watch it, is we've really established that even though, you know, Howard does feel the need to push Chuck out at this point, and rightfully so, he still feels like Jimmy's attack on him was wrong, though. But, you know, his course of action here is to basically do the same thing and use Chuck's mental illness against him.
Yeah, I mean, he would to a large degree be going down the Jimmy route. Not in the Jimmy way, with all the stunts.
Right,
and all that.
right. Not doing it in the same way, but he's going to have to do the same thing ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a long and protracted legal debate, because I think Howard's going to have plenty of ammunition to kind of say this guy needs to retire. He's not viable as an ongoing lawyer, and we can't sustain the costs that having him on the books would do. But Chuck's going to be able to say, regardless of that, I've got equity in this place, and you're not going to just have me retire and give me a little stipend. It's you need to make good. So it'll be interesting to see how far they take that in the next episode, the last episode, because we have several plot threads. We got just actually one more big one kind of coming up here that I don't know how many of them can get wrapped up in the last episode. I got to think at least one or two of them do, but I don't know if you can really. I don't think you can bring all of them to close. Some of them are going to kind of cliffhang into next year. They're going to have to, and I think this is one of them, because I
completely agree.
I don't think the Howard Chuck battle can wrap up unless you had a whole episode dedicated to it. And I don't think they'd want to do that.
No, I feel like we're just setting the stage for that.
Yep. And boy, this was great in that, boy, they really set the stage for the season finale, but it didn't feel like they were setting the stage. It was just, things are kind of all coming to a head, but it's just brilliantly written. It doesn't feel forced, and it's just getting more and more exciting. So of course, then we get to the highly exciting world of rigging bingo. So we all learn how to do that, and Jimmy sets it up so that Irene's going to win. Slides her a card, and he's put some magnetic stuff inside a certain bingo ball so that her card's going to be the one that wins. He comes to the bingo. I love any scene where you can give me Jimmy calling bingo. I can watch that for 20 minutes because he's in his full Matlock gear. And my runner-up for quote of the show was the first letter when they cut to the bingo, which is, by the way, it's a pretty posh bingo setup they got going there. Lots of lights and balloons and such. But first letter he pulls out is B9. And his call out on that is, let's hope that biopsy comes out B9, which I thought was awesome. Irene wins. Nobody claps. She's clearly crushed about this, runs off in tears. Jimmy goes and finds her. And I'll be interested in your thoughts. So he's sitting by here. And I got the sense when I watched that just for like about a half second, there was a flicker of remorse, of him feeling bad about what he was doing to her. It went away really quick, but I think just for a second, he kind of caught full vision of what he was doing and didn't like it, but then washed that away because he's got a different job he's got to do. Did you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, the subtlety of the acting, absolutely I do. But I think he's come too far now. There's clearly no turning back for him. We're not going to see a full reemergence of Jimmy. We're just, spiraling into Saul. And Bob Odenkirk is such a good actor, and the writing is so good that they can have those subtle, like him grasping at these sort of his morality that is left, but letting go of them ultimately.
Yeah, and I'm sure that scene, was written like, show as this is playing out, show that, for a second you're questioning yourself on it, or you're feeling bad about it before you continue on and move on. And so many other actors would really make it a point so that you were like absolutely clear. And Bob Odenkirk, as you mentioned, such a good actor. He conveys it, but it's subtle. It's there. It's pretty hard to miss, there, but it's not this kind of big ham bone about him, oh no, I can't believe I'm doing this, kind of turning away for a second and coming back. It's just this nice little moment. And of course, he finishes up with, he's like, what would you do? And he's like, just listen to your heart. Because he knows at this point he has built this, that this woman wants her friends back. And if she can get her friends back by getting the settlement out, she's going to do that. So he's achieved his objective. And he rushes to tell Kim, who's going through a ton of work to get ready for her big meeting that basically has to happen today for them to beat certain tax things. They're assembling everything, her and Francesca. Jimmy wants her to party. Kim is completely stressed out, can't really deal with any of Jimmy's nonsense right now, has got to get out the door. She's 20 minutes late. She gets out the door. She's practicing her speech. She's driving down the road. She clearly had thrown an all-nighter. And so did you know, as we saw this last scene, what was likely going to be the outcome of it?
No. You?
I thought there was a good chance that Kim was going to, because we saw a little bit of scene earlier where she took a little 5-minute nap and all that, and she's exhausted. So I wasn't positive, but I thought that was one definite outcome. But it still was a startling moment, greatly shot again on how they achieve it, where you got Kim in the car practicing it. There's this kind of long beat, and the next thing you know, there's airbags everywhere. Kim's black and blue in her eyes. She's got a little bit of blood on it. She's messed up her arm, and gets out of her car, and it's just all the paperwork is just splayed out around the car. I thought it was a brilliant scene. I thought this was the one, and I don't usually have many quibbles with this group and the cinematography they do, but I am fairly positive, and I'll have to listen to the Insider podcast to see if they talk about it. But
the second best after show.
Yes, that second show after this show, the second best after show. There's at the very tail end of it, like a couple pieces of paper that comes shooting out of the roof or out of the trunk, which I think we're there to assume the wind blew them out, but they fire out like they came out of a cannon. And it just, to me, that was like, I'm assuming it was effective. It'll be really cool. She's sitting there at the end and all the papers are out there, and then a couple other papers fly out of the trunk. And so they set up a practical effect to do that. And it just looked to me like an air cannon fired 2 pieces of paper out of the back, which is, they don't usually, they're usually not that transparent. At least, that's the way it came across to me, which was, oh, you wanted that as an ending thing, and you didn't quite get the effect to work the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely felt that was done intentionally to punctuate the situation. It's not as smooth as it could be.
Yeah. And unnecessary, because I think you're not going to feel any worse for Kim at this point in time. It's just been, it's just a horrible situation for her, and she's hurt, so it's just a lot of things. So we've got Kim, stressed out, banged up, missing an important date with a client. We've got, based on the upcoming, the previews for next week, we've got Hector making a visit to Nacho's dad's business. We got the Chuck and Howard stuff. And we've got Jimmy looking to get a settlement check. So it's going to be a big last show. Do you have any ideas of which of these storylines is going to come to conclusion, or any predictions at all you'd like to make going into this last week?
I'm not sure what we're really getting to. I feel like we're setting the stage between a Chuck Howard battle. I don't think we're going to get any resolution or even get that far into that. I think they're just setting that up for next season. I feel like we're not going to see the settlement go through necessarily. We might get the impression that it's about to, like she might opt for the settlement, but I don't think we're going to necessarily see Jimmy a millionaire by the end of this season. You?
So I find it hard to believe, based on Saul's accommodations in Breaking Bad, that Jimmy was able to hold on to that whole million one way or another. So to me, it could be yay, I got the settlement, and then there's some sort of follow-up or penalty or something that kind of greatly reduces what he actually has to work with.
Yeah, I don't think Jimmy gets the money. I think we're going to see them reach a settlement, but I don't think he's getting that money.
I think you're right. And
yeah, so whatever that is, it causes that.
Yeah, which is the awesome thing about the show is we don't know what it is, but it'll be cool, whatever it is. Yeah, I think that will come to some sort of conclusion. So I think the whole settlement thing resolves one way or another, but I'm with you that I don't think it resolves by, and here you go, $1.1 million. That's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to play out in Jimmy's favor quite like that.
And I'm hopeful that we get closure on Hector. It's hard to say on that, but I think Chuck and Howard will be setting us up for the next season. And I think kind of Kim's journey also just kind of maybe starts to go on a different course. This may be she may start to, this may have been a traumatic enough event where she's saying, hey, I need to do something different or something. I don't know. But I don't think things resolve for Kim completely. So I think Kim, Chuck, Howard,
I don't know that we're really going to see any kind of closure on any of that kind of stuff. Like, it might be like they agree to settle, but we don't see what happens. We might just take another step towards setting the stage between the Chuck Howard battle, but I don't think they're going to start that at this juncture in the season. We might see Kim start to reevaluate what's going on, but I don't think we're going to see whatever the change is yet that causes Kim to not be in Saul's life by the time we meet him at Breaking Bad. So I actually think we're going to get a lot more. We're going to get a step closer on everything, but I have a feeling we might not get closure on any of it.
That's a distinct possibility. Plus, if they stay true to form, the opening is going to be Gene. So they always kind of start the season and end the season with a black and white Cinnabon related clip. And so last we left Gene, he had collapsed at the Cinnabon. And so we're probably going to pick up that thread a little bit and at least understand where Gene's now at. So I'm excited to see where that's going as well. So it's going to be a big one. And looking forward to it. And then we're done. And it's whistled by. It's been good. It's been a good season. I know some folks complained early on that the pace was a little bit slow. I never really felt that way. I mean, it wasn't breakneck speed through everything, but things were developing. But obviously, you can't be complaining about the pacing of the show these last couple episodes at all.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm not saying the pacing was consistently as fast this season as it was in the previous season, but I think the pacing worked perfectly for the storyline and for the way everything unfolded. So it never felt slow. It felt perfectly paced for what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and building and more speed. And now we got a big date here next Monday. So looking forward to it. And so no excuses, but making an excuse. I didn't get a chance to go back and revise all of our scores to kind of know where we're at with our chemometer and Lyle meter. But so maybe we'll just trend line it this time. You got Kim going up or down in terms of her likelihood of survival right now with 100%.
I got Kim going up right now. She's going to be pretty high for me.
Or
I'm sorry?
So going up has greater likelihood that bad things are going to happen?
Yes, yeah. Going up is in a greater likelihood something bad's going to happen because now not only is she in danger because of her proximity to Jimmy Saul and everything that he has coming down the pipe towards him, but she's falling apart on her own. So she doesn't even have the foundation she had at her full strength, which in and of itself probably isn't enough to get by Saul unscathed.
Fair enough. And I was I was a little bit lower than you on where she was at, but I'm going to trend her up as well, because part of my theory earlier was I was feeling like she was lining up for a break with Jimmy, and by breaking with Jimmy, that puts her in a better place. But what we're starting to see is that she's not exactly, she's kind of her own worst enemy on some things as well. And so even broke from Jimmy, there are things that she may do that aren't going to be good for her in terms of how hard she drives herself and things like that. So I'm going to bump her up a little bit as well. So I will make sure that I get all of our numbers baked and ready to go, and I'll get a new chart out there so that we can go into the finale solid, so we can finish with numbers for the end of the season. But I got her up, and Lyle, I pulled him way down. I still think he's staying at low risk because I think Hector's going to be out of the picture here pretty soon, with the notable exception that if he does happen to cross paths with him, he's dead.
I think Lyle is actually, I think I brought him down the last time as well, and now I'm going to bring him back up again because Hector is just increasingly angry with Gus. So I think before whatever happens to Hector happens as a result of this pill swap, I think there's a chance there's going to be another visit to the restaurant coming very soon.
I could see that. And Lyle will not, that will not be good for Lyle.
No, Lyle is not surviving their next encounter. And based on their meeting and how Hector took that meeting with Don Eladio's plans and things like that, and his stance on all that, I can see a meeting coming soon at the restaurant, a drop-by visit.
Yep. Oh, Hector, you're such an ass. So, all right. Well, gang, one more of these for this season next week. It'll be the finale. It's been fun, and looking forward to this next episode. So
absolutely
great. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.